Welcome to ChatterBox Podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Jessica.
All right, so let's dive into something I think a lot of us are curious about these days. Making remote work really work. We're going beyond the whole, work in your pajamas hype to see how people are building actual thriving careers outside the traditional office.
Yeah, what's so fascinating to me is we're not just talking theory here. We've got real stories from 3 different professionals, a videographer, an IT specialist, and a UX UI designer. Each one is kind of showing us a different path to, succeeding in the remote world.
And what's really cool is these folks are from all over the world. I mean, we've got India, Pakistan, Brazil. Mm-hmm. It's like proof that where you are matters less and less these days. But how they actually do it, that's what we're unpacking today.
Right. It really highlights how remote work is kind of leveling the playing field.
Okay.
It's not so much about location anymore, but how you use your skills and your network in this new landscape.
Okay, so first up, we've got Arjun, a videographer from India. He started out feeling really stuck in a local production house, long hours, low pay, the whole bit. I think a lot of people listening can probably relate to that feeling of there's got to be something more out there.
Yeah, totally. And for Arjun, that something more was realizing, wait, I can work with clients anywhere. But the thing is, he didn't just sit around and wait for clients to appear. He got strategic, especially with his LinkedIn profile.
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Really? I always thought that was more for corporate jobs. I wouldn't have thought of that for a creative field like video editing.
That's exactly the kind of misconception that Arjun busted. He basically rebranded himself on LinkedIn as a remote video editor, making it super clear to potential clients anywhere in the world what he offered. It's like setting up shop, but your shop window is for the whole global market.
Oh, that's interesting. So instead of just competing with people in his city, he was suddenly in the running for gigs internationally. I mean, did he just sit back and wait for the offers to roll in after that?
Not at all. He took it way further. He started actively connecting with potential clients on LinkedIn. But not just sending generic messages, he would personalize each one, showing how his skills could help them specifically.
Okay, now that's smart. So many people just blast out the same message to everyone. But Arjun actually took the time to, do his homework on each person he contacted.
Exactly. It's all about treating networking as a way to build real connections, not just spamming people. And guess what? It worked. He landed his first international gig with a YouTuber from LA.
Wow. So you really can be sitting in India and working with, Hollywood clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be such a huge confidence boost, especially coming from feeling so stuck at that local production house.
Right. It's a perfect example of how remote work can unlock these doors you didn't even know existed. But that first client is just the beginning. Arjun really got that. To succeed in this world, you got to build momentum.
So how did he go from one gig to a full-blown remote career? What was the secret?
He knew that over-delivering was absolutely key. With that first client, he went above and beyond, exceeding expectations and making sure communication was top-notch. In a world where anyone can be a freelancer, it's that extra effort that really makes you stand out.
It's like the online version of word of mouth, right? Happy clients tell their friends, and suddenly the work is finding you.
Precisely. Soon, Arjun was working with clients all over the world, so much so that he felt confident enough to finally quit his old job. Sometimes you got to take that leap of faith to really chase what you want.
That's a big decision, though. I think I'd be terrified to leave a stable job for something so new and uncertain. Was it all smooth sailing for him once he went fully remote?
To be honest, not always. He had his share of challenges, like time zone differences, late payments, even clients who totally ghosted him. It's a side of remote work we don't always hear about.
That's a really good point. It's easy to romanticize working from anywhere, but there are definitely downsides. So what did Arjun do to handle those tougher moments?
He learned some tough lessons, especially about how important clear contracts are and getting upfront deposits. That's something anyone going remote should think about, protecting themselves from the start.
So it's not just about the creative skills. There's a whole business side to freelance remote work that you got to master. What other advice did Arjun have for people who want to work remotely?
He was really big on the idea that networking never stops. Even when you're busy with clients, you got to keep building those connections. It's like tending a garden, You can't just plant the seeds and walk away.
Makes sense, especially in the digital world where things are changing so fast and you can't afford to get complacent.
Exactly. And that's something that our next remote worker, Adil, understood really well. He's an IT specialist from Pakistan, and his story shows how to stand out in a super competitive field.
Okay, I'm intrigued. From video editing to IT, these are such different paths, but they're both thriving remotely. Let's hear what Adil did to break into that international tech scene.
Adil's story is so interesting because it really shows you how you can turn limited local opportunities into global success. He was facing this really tough IT job market in Pakistan. But instead of getting discouraged, he was like, okay, remote work is my way to break through.
That's so inspiring, especially for folks in places where the local job scene just doesn't have what they need. But how did he even start? It's got to be a whole different ballgame looking for work internationally.
He knew that platforms like LinkedIn and Upwork were key. They were his ticket to reaching a global audience. But here's where his strategy gets really smart. He didn't just, create a profile and cross his fingers. He did things to stand out from the crowd.
So it wasn't enough to just list his skills. He had to actually sell himself right.
Yeah.
I bet that's especially important in a field like IT where everyone's kind of vying for the same gigs.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. He started by totally revamping his LinkedIn profile, highlighting his expertise in cloud computing and cybersecurity. But then he took it a step further. He invested in certifications like AWS and cybersecurity certifications.
That's so smart. It's one thing to say you have the skills, but certifications actually prove it. It's like a signal to clients that they can trust you.
Right. It shows you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And that you're serious about staying ahead in your field. Think about if you were hiring someone. Wouldn't you be more impressed by someone who took the time to get certified?
Oh, for sure. It shows a level of dedication and commitment that goes beyond just wanting a job. So did he stop at sprucing up his profiles, or was there more to his strategy?
He was all about proactive networking. He would engage with industry professionals on LinkedIn, not just sending those generic connection requests, but personalized ones, showing he actually looked at their profiles and found common ground.
Okay, so another tip. Don't be a spammer, be a connector. But isn't there a risk of seeming insincere if you're reaching out to so many people?
Oh, that's a good point. It's a fine line between being proactive and being pushy. Adil's secret was to focus on building real relationships. He would comment thoughtfully on their posts, participate in discussions, and position himself as someone valuable in the community.
So it's about quality connections, not quantity. And all that effort paid off, right? Didn't he end up getting a pretty sweet gig?
It totally did. A recruiter from a US-based startup saw his profile, and they were impressed by both his skills and his engagement in the community. They reached out, and after a pretty intense interview, Adil landed his first remote contract.
I bet he was thrilled. Was it a good gig at least? Some of those remote jobs I see online don't pay that well. And I imagine the competition is pretty tough.
Oh, it was more than good. This contract paid him 3 times his previous local salary. Talk about a life-changing opportunity. It just shows how remote work can totally boost your earning potential, especially if you're in a region with lower average salaries.
Wow, that's incredible. Did he ever imagine making that kind of money working remotely? What a testament to taking a chance on yourself and putting in the hard work.
Totally, and his success didn't stop there. That first project led to more. And soon he was working with multiple clients from the US, Canada, and Germany. He was collaborating with top-tier cybersecurity teams, something he never thought possible from his home office in Lahore.
That's amazing. It shows you don't have to be in Silicon Valley to work with the best in tech. But I'm also curious about time zones. How did he manage working with clients across so many different time zones?
That's where asynchronous communication comes in. It's a fancy way of saying you don't need to be online at the same time as your clients to get things done. It's about communicating clearly, setting expectations, and using tools that keep everyone in the loop even across time zones.
So that's what asynchronous communication means. To be honest, I wasn't totally clear on that before. Makes sense, though, especially for global teams. But it must require a ton of organization and discipline to pull that off.
Absolutely. And that's something Adil emphasized too. He said that remote work demands, strong time management skills. You're your own boss, so you have to be extra disciplined, setting deadlines, sticking to them, and communicating effectively.
It's like running your own little business, even if you're working for someone else. That level of responsibility can be daunting, but also kind of empowering.
Right. And think about the flexibility it gives you. You can structure your day to fit your own rhythm as long as you deliver the work on time. It's all about finding a system that works for you.
So far, we've heard from a video editor and an IT specialist, both carving out these incredible remote careers. But what about creative fields that are more collaborative, like design? Can you really build a strong design career working remotely?
That's where our next story comes in. Lucas, a UX UI designer from Brazil, shows us how it's done. He faced a unique set of challenges, especially finding clients who valued remote talent. In a field that often relies on in-person collaboration,
I'm all ears. Design is so visual and often involves brainstorming sessions and bouncing ideas around. I just can't imagine how you'd replicate that energy remotely.
Yeah, it's true. Design does feel like it needs that, that in-person energy. But Lucas's story really shows that remote work can open up so many creative possibilities, even in those fields that we think of as like traditionally collaborative.
What's interesting is that Lucas started out feeling kind of trapped in a, traditional office job, kind of like Arjun, actually. He wanted the freedom and flexibility of remote work, but he knew he had to be strategic to actually make it happen.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in that day-to-day grind and forget about those bigger dreams. It sounds like Lucas was at that point where he needed a change, like a way to reignite that creative spark.
Yep, totally.
He was like, okay, there's got to be more to life than just churning out designs in a cubicle. He wanted to collaborate with people from all over, to be part of a global design community. And remote work was his way to get there.
So how did he go from dreaming of remote design to actually landing clients? I imagine the competition is pretty intense, especially for international gigs.
He knew that having a killer portfolio was absolutely key. So he focused on showcasing his best work, highlighting projects that really showed off, his unique skills and eye for design. Think of it like curating your own online art gallery. But instead of paintings, it's your design projects that are on display.
That makes sense. You got to grab those clients' attention right away, especially when they're looking at so many profiles online. But the portfolio is just the start, right? What else did Lucas do to stand out?
He was really proactive about mastering those like industry standard design tools like Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD. These are the tools the pros use. So being fluent in them is like, speaking the language of the global design community.
Oh, so it's not just about having a good eye. You got to have the technical chops too. Did he find that learning those tools helped him get more opportunities?
Totally. It's like a secret weapon for any designer. Clients feel so much more confident knowing that you can hit the ground running and just fit right into their workflow no matter what tools they're using.
But learning new tools takes time and effort. I'm impressed by how dedicated he was to constantly learning new things, especially while working a full-time job. It shows how badly he wanted to make that remote dream a reality.
He also understood that networking was super important, even in a visual field like design. He made sure his LinkedIn profile was like a magnet for potential clients. But he went even further. He joined all these online UX UI communities. He even went to virtual meetups and was really active in engaging with other designers and industry leaders.
So even though he was going for remote work, he still saw the value of building those connections, being part of a community. Did he find those online interactions as valuable as meeting people in person?
He actually found them even more valuable because these online communities gave him access to designers and clients from all over the world. It expanded his network way beyond what he could have done locally.
That's so cool. It's like the internet breaks down those barriers and connects people who share the same passions, no matter where they live. So was it all smooth sailing for Lucas once he started applying for those international gigs?
It's easy to think that these success stories happened overnight, but Lucas is a good reminder that even the most successful remote workers faced a lot of rejection along the way. It's really about persevering through those tough moments.
Rejections are tough no matter what you do. Did Lucas have any advice for dealing with those setbacks and staying motivated?
He said it was all about refining his approach. So after each rejection, he'd look at it and think, okay, what can I do better?
Right.
Like maybe tailoring his portfolio to specific clients or finding ways to really showcase his skills and experience.
So he used the rejections as fuel to improve. That's a great mindset. So did that eventually lead him to his first big break?
It did. He landed his first international client. It was a startup in Canada that needed a website redesign. It wasn't a huge project, but it was a foot in the door, a chance to prove himself on a global stage.
It's amazing how one small opportunity can lead to so much more. Did he use that project as a way to get even more clients?
Definitely. He really went all out on that project, exceeding expectations and building a strong relationship with the client. And that led to great testimonials and referrals, which opened up even more doors for him.
It shows that doing amazing work, even on those smaller projects, can really pay off. It's like building your reputation and attracting new opportunities.
Totally. And those smaller projects allowed him to build a solid portfolio and gain experience working with international clients. Eventually, he landed a full-time remote role with a European tech company. Talk about a dream come true.
That's incredible. It shows that you don't have to freelance forever. You can use those experiences to get a stable remote position with a company that you really believe in. But working for a company across different continents must come with its own challenges, right?
Oh, for sure. One of the biggest ones was the time zones. Lucas had to get really good at asynchronous communication, which, like we talked about with Adil, is all about communicating well and staying organized when you're not working in the same time zone as everyone else.
Asynchronous communication sounds like it's so crucial for anyone who wants to work remotely, especially in global teams. Did Lucas have any tips for making that work smoothly?
He said that setting clear expectations with your team is super important, establishing communication protocols, and being really organized about deadlines and what needs to get done. He also used a lot of tools that help with collaboration and kept everyone on the same page, even across time zones.
So it's about finding the right tools and strategies to bridge those time zone gaps. But it's not just about work, right? I mean, when your home is your office, it must be hard to keep a good balance between work and life.
That's something Lucas was super aware of. He talked about how important it is to set boundaries between work time and personal time. When you're working remotely, it's so easy for those lines to get blurred, and you start to feel like you're always on.
Like you can never really switch off. Did Lucas have any ways to deal with that and protect his personal time?
He was really intentional about leaving the office. Even if that office was just, his home workspace, he had specific work hours and he stuck to them, making sure to log off at a decent time and then spend time on his hobbies and, his life outside of work. It's about creating those mental boundaries, even if the physical ones are kind of fuzzy.
Finding that balance, where you're productive and engaged with work, but also taking care of yourself and having a life outside of work. It sounds like Arjun, Adil, and Lucas, despite having such different paths, all found their own way to make that balance work.
They did. And their stories show some of the things that are so important for success in remote work, no matter what industry you're in or what skills you have.
We've talked about how important it is to network, to keep learning and growing your skills, to be good at communicating asynchronously, and to set those boundaries to protect your time and energy. But I think what really stood out to me was their resilience, like their ability to keep going even when things got tough, to bounce back from setbacks and keep chasing those goals.
Absolutely. Their stories are proof that, success in remote work isn't about luck. It's about having a vision, taking action, and never giving up on what you want.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into remote work, I have one last question for you listening. What's one small thing you could do this week to move closer to your own remote work dreams? Is it finally updating that portfolio? Joining an online community? Whatever it is, take that first step.
That's it. Every journey starts with a single step. What will yours be?